Well, good evening and welcome to another episode of True Crime with the Bad Girl, the Player, and the Star. But wait a minute, it's not just another episode. It is a historic 50th episode. So I have this glass of vino here, and I would like to propose a toast. And it's actually for two reasons. It's the first two reasons. First, I want to thank all three of you for being such great co-hosts with me. I have absolutely loved doing this with you guys. You know, the average age or the average duration of a podcast is 3 to 4 episodes. And here we are at 50 and we're rocking and rolling. So thank you guys very much. And I do want to thank the people in the chat. And I want to thank Monte and the Pharaoh on the great Monte and the Pharaoh YouTube channel for giving us a platform to do this show. So thank you all. And the other reason I have this glass in my hand is because this is our worldwide premiere on Want Radio, WANT. That's the station that I do my Benny and the Jet Set Sunday afternoon radio show. Great station. Thank you to Wendy and Ken for letting us do this. And hopefully we can attract more viewers to Want Radio and we can get some more subscribers for the YouTube channel. So yeah, here's to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Benny.
It's been a blast, and it's only the beginning, like Chicago saying, right? But I am Benny the Scala, the one and only player. My alter ego is Benny the Jet. That's where I was going with that. That's what I am on Sundays. But with me, as always, is my partner in True Crime. She's a New England Professional Wrestling Hall of Famer. She is the Reverend Mayor's mom, and she is the heel of all heels. And, of course, I can only be talking about the very bad co-host, the one and only Boston Bad Girl, Brittany Brown. Brittany, how are you, my friend?
Well, I'm okay. It's beautiful weather, but I was fine until about 3 minutes ago when Archie got pissed off at me and stomped up the stairs. So
the nerve of him. You know, you give somebody, you make him a reverend, and this is how he behaves, right?
I know. He thinks he's better than me now.
I don't get it. You would think he'd be better behaved as a man, a dog of the cloth, right?
You would think. But I think he's got a little of that, the carnival genes in him.
All right, and here again is the resident genius of true crime and the director of security for Dangerous Dave's Carnival, Tiffany Starr. Tiffany, I heard there's some shady goings on in that carnival. Are you keeping Dave out of trouble?
I mean, look at him. I would say no.
I'm going to grade. What do we give her? We give her like a C+ on her job performance, as far as that part of it, anyway. Keeping Dave out of trouble.
B-.
All right, you're very generous. I'll go with B-. And last but certainly not least is the one and only Dangerous Dave Starr. Rumor has it that Dave is expanding his org chart and is now advertising for a director of IT. Dave, any truth to that rumor?
Well, I don't know about that, but I do know about this. 5-0, big 5-0 tonight.
Yes.
And thank you for having me on the podcast. Salute. Thank you for having me on the podcast. And everybody that's been on in the past, Phil. Can't forget Phil, who started out with you. And
Phil will be back when we cover Karen Reed, I think.
Yeah, thank you to Brittany, because she's the one that when we were talking about Karen Reed last year, if my memory serves me right, she said, "You know what? You know so much about this case. I'm going to ask Benny if you can come on the podcast one time and talk about this case."
I am so glad she did that. Man, that was a great move.
I don't know if it was, Benny. I don't know.
Well,
I swear to tell the whole truth. I swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth to help me on the 50th.
Amen. All right, guys. Well, let's pay some bills here real quick, and then we'll get on to the show. This is Benny Scala, the one and only player, and welcome to another episode of True Crime with the Bad Girl, the Player, and the Stars. Folks, we're very excited to be announcing our new sponsor, the Free Spirited Company. Free Spirited is a phenomenal old-school clothing company that specializes in long and short-sleeve T-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, graphic tees, heck, even yoga pants. These T-shirts are, to quote Rocky's manager, Mickey Goldmill, a wake of art. Yours truly will be rocking the Free Spirited merch on each and every episode of True Crime with the Bad Girl, the Player, and the Stars. Not only are these shirts eye-catching, but they are very comfortable as well. Like what you see? Please go to shopfreespirited.com and use our special code MP20 to receive a 20% discount on all purchases. Again, that is shopfreespirited.com, and the code is MP20. As the poet laureate of the Monte and the Pharaoh YouTube channel, I will leave you with this. If you like what you see, go buy a tea. Heck, maybe even 2 or 3. When your friends tell you, hey, you look like the bomb, send them over to shopfreespirited.com. All right, guys. Well, we are going way back in time to cover a retro piece of shit. And it really doesn't get any worse than this guy, John Wayne Gacy, a.k.a. the Killer Clown. John Wayne Gacy, yeah, scary, right? John Wayne Gacy was an American serial killer and sex offender who raped, tortured, and murdered at least, and Brittany and I were talking about this before the show, at least 33. But who knows how many he really murdered. Men and boys in Norwood Park Township, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. He became known as the Killer Clown due to his public performances as a clown prior to the discovery of his crimes. Gacy committed all of his known murders inside his ranch-style home. Typically, he'd lure a victim to his home, and these were usually young runaway kids, and dupe them into donning handcuffs on the pretext of demonstrating a magic trick. He'd then rape and torture his cat by either before killing his victim by either asphyxiation or strangulation with a garrote. 26 victims were buried in the crawl space of his home, and 3 were buried elsewhere on his property. 4 were discarded in the, I don't know if it's Des Plaines or Des Plaines River in Illinois. So the bad girl and the true genius will take you through the facts of this, I want to say, horrific case.
Yeah, it sure is. I mean, that clown picture, that's one of the worst ones I've ever seen of him.
Oh, yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
He's
Imagine looking at that guy.
Oh my God, no. And I want to say hello to everyone in the chat room, but I especially want to say hello to my friends, Mrs. P, and to her daughter, Denise, who we call 2.0.
Okay.
So hi, Mrs. P, and hi, 2.0, if you're listening.
Tori's there.
Yeah, Tori said looks like a worker from Dave's Carnival.
Okay.
Yes, and I know, right?
My bestie, the beautiful Katie Morgan. Hey, Katie, thanks for being here. She hates clowns. Always knew there was a reason for it. Yeah, this is definitely a reason for it.
This is it, yeah. So John Wayne Gacy was born at Edgewater Hospital in Chicago, Illinois on March 17th, 1942, the second of 3 children and the only son of John Stanley Gacy and Marion Elaine Robison. His father was an auto repair machinist and World War I veteran, and his mother was a homemaker. Gacy was of Polish and Danish ancestry, and his family was Catholic. That goes to show you. You just never know. He was close to his mother and 2 sisters, but had a difficult relationship with his alcoholic father, who was verbally and physically abusive to his family. The elder Gacy frequently belittled his son, calling him dumb and stupid, and comparing him unfavorably with the sisters. One of Gacy's earliest childhood memories was of his father beating him at age 4 for accidentally disarranging car engine components. Well, that's good to have a 4-year-old near car engine components.
Yeah. What is the father
His
thinking?
mother tried to shield her son from his father's abuse, which resulted in accusations that he was a sissy and a mama's boy who would probably grow up queer. Sounds like Archie Bunker. In 1949, Gacy's father whipped him after he and another boy were caught sexually fondling a young girl. This kid can't win. He's either a queer or he can't fondle the young girls. The same year, a family friend began to occasionally molest Gacy. Oh, lovely. Gacy never told his father, afraid that his father would blame him. Despite their challenging relationship, Gacy loved his father, but felt he was never good enough in his father's eyes. Gacy was an overweight and unathletic child. Because of a heart condition, he was told to avoid sports. In the 4th grade, he began to experience blackouts. He was hospitalized on occasion because of these episodes, and also in 1957 for a burst appendix. Gacy later estimated that between the ages of 14 and 18, he had spent almost a year in hospitals. He attributed the decline of his grades to missing school. Gacy's medical condition was never conclusively diagnosed. His father suspected he was malingering. He openly accused his son of faking as he lay in a hospital bed. Isn't that awful?
That's a great dad, right?
God. Great. In 1960, at age 18, Gacy became involved in politics, working as an assistant precinct captain for a local Democratic Party candidate. This led to more criticism from his father, who called him a patsy. The same year, Gacy's father bought him a car. He kept the vehicle's title in his own name until Gacy had paid for it, which took several years. His father would confiscate the keys if Gacy did not do what he said. In April 1962, Gacy purchased an extra set of keys. In response, his father removed the distributor cap, keeping the component for 3 days. Hours after his father replaced the cap, Gacy left home and drove to Las Vegas, Nevada with $136 to his name in the hopes of residing with a cousin.
Well, that was pretty decent money back in the 70s, though. That was some righteous bucks.
Yeah, I think I would have moved if someone took my distributor cap too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Come on now. That's control. That's control now.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that the dad sounds like a real piece of shit. Not like Gacy, but I mean, a piece of shit in his own right. And just holding that car over his head that anytime he didn't jump through whatever hoops the dad set for him, I'm taking your keys away. He'd probably get sick of it.
I know. I would have. I definitely would have. Gacy worked in the Vegas ambulance service before being transferred to Palm Mortuary. Oh, lovely. He worked as a mortuary attendant for 3 months, observing morticians embalming bodies and occasionally serving as a pallbearer. He slept on a cot behind the embalming room. Oh, God. And later confessed that one evening while alone, he clambered into the coffin of a teenage male, embracing and caressing the body before experiencing a sense of shock. The experience
this is like
prompted
Gacy.
Gacy.
Remember Katie Vick on WWE? It's like Katie Vick all over again. Actually, it was Katie Vick before Katie Vick.
I know. Oh my, what would ever possess somebody to do that?
I don't know. It sounds really creepy, but I don't think sleeping behind the embalming room helped anything, because I'm pretty sure those chemicals are really strong and probably got to his brain. Because why else are you laying in a coffin? What a creep.
I'm telling you, I was at the nail salon Saturday and I almost passed out from some of the smells there.
Yeah.
I was hoping they'd open their door. I literally was close to passing out. So I can't even imagine what this must have smelled like. Oh my God.
Glad you're not around me when I have cabbage.
Okay.
Dad, go back to the carnival.
Cabbage bites. Shortly thereafter, Gacy enrolled at Northwestern Business College, despite having failed to complete high school. He graduated in 1963 and took a management trainee position with the Nunn Bush Shoe Company. In 1964, the company transferred him to Springfield, Illinois, to work as a salesman, and eventually promoted him to department manager. In March of that year, he became engaged to Marlene Myers, a co-worker.
I wonder if he worked with Al Bundy. Selling shoes.
No. During their courtship, Gacy joined the local chapter of the JCs. That same year, he had his second homosexual experience. According to Gacy, a colleague in the JCs plied him with drinks, and invited him to spend the evening on his sofa. The colleague then performed oral sex on him while he was drunk. By 1965, Gacy had risen.
Risen.
To the
He did. Yeah,
position
good
of
word,
vice.
right? He's risen.
Very good. He has risen to the position of
gross.
vice president of the Springfield JCs and was named the third most outstanding JC in Illinois.
And
Yeah,
the
because
most likely to
there was
fucking
oral
kill
sex.
33 people.
The only reason why he was named the most outstanding JC is because he was giving oral sex and getting oral sex.
Well, yeah, that's right.
right.
They all nominated him. Yeah.
I'm surprised he wasn't first, but for some reason he likes that
Dave
number
is way
3.
too quiet. We're talking about
33.
Blizzo Jizzobs, and Dave is silent. This is really disturbing.
Yeah, Daddy, you're right.
know.
Do you know what's going on?
You come into Dave's carnival, any females, you want to try to get into the legislature, just let me know.
Gacy and Myers married in September 1964. Marilyn's father subsequently purchased 3 Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurants in Waterloo, Iowa. The couple moved there so Gacy could manage the restaurants, with the understanding that they would move into Marlin's parents' former home. The offer was lucrative. Gacy would receive $15,000 per year, the equivalent of about $152,600 as of today, plus a share of the restaurant's profits. Can't beat that. Gacy opened a club in his basement where his employees could drink alcohol and play pool. Although Gacy employed employed teenagers of both sexes, he socialized only with the males. Gacy gave many of them alcohol before he made sexual advances. If they rebuffed him, he would claim his advances were jokes or a test of morals.
Now here's a guy, though. I think he's 22 at this point. So he's 22. He's got a wife. He gets a job making the equivalent of $150,000, which is some really righteous bucks, plus a percentage of the profits of the restaurant. Plus that he's only going to do better and better. I mean, the guy had everything, but it wasn't what he wanted.
Yeah, clearly, chicken was not the meat he wanted.
I'll tell you what, that's some watered down sperm that went into his mother's uterus that night, because that guy's fucked up. Right?
There we go. That's a Dave comment. There we go.
Yep.
Gacy's wife gave birth to a son in February 1966 and a daughter in March 1967. Gacy later described this period of his life as perfect. He had finally earned his father's approval. When Gacy's parents visited in July 1966, his father privately apologized for the abuse he had inflicted before happily saying, "Son, I was wrong about you," as he shook Gacy's hand.
No,
wrong, Pops, wrong.
Wrongo. You were right, buddy.
You don't know how right you were.
Yep.
And some. In Waterloo, Gacy joined the local JC's chapter, regularly offering extended hours to the organization, in addition to the 12 and 14-hour days he worked managing the restaurants. At meetings, he often provided fried chicken and insisted on being called Colonel.
What a disrespect to KFC.
Guy's fucked up.
Colonel. I wonder if he did that. Oh, no, I can't.
No, wait, it might be having some fried chicken coming to Dave's Carnival.
He and other Waterloo JCs were also deeply involved in drug abuse, pornography, prostitution, and wife swapping. Although Gacy was considered ambitious and a braggart, the JCs held him in high regard for his fundraising work. In 1967, he was named outstanding vice president of the Waterloo JCs and served on the board of directors.
And the most likely to fucking kill 33 people. But, the JCs is supposed to be the Junior Chamber of Commerce. Like, these are supposed to be like the upstanding citizens of the community. And these guys are doing
And they're doing this.
Yeah, hookers, wife swapping, you name blow. What the hell?
I mean, he's not a dumb guy. I mean, he's deplorable, but he's not dumb.
Well, no,
he's not. He is not. He's a smart guy. I mean, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he was really smart, and when he talked, like, you could tell that it's just so weird because he seemed so like normal and just like really smart, and like just like you were having a conversation with like a normal guy. You would never think that he was doing all this weird shit and being called the Colonel and stuff.
Colonel, yeah. That's the only reason you knew he was weird, is that you had to say, Colonel, can I see you for a minute?
Like, are you serious? Colonel, really? He might have been like, he might have looked like him, but
yeah, he just seemed like a really normal guy. It's a shame.
God. In August 1967, Gacy sexually assaulted a 15-year-old boy named Donald Voorhees Jr., the son of Donald Edwin Voorhees, a local politician and fellow JC. Oh, real smart. Gacy lured Voorhees to his house with the promise of showing him heterosexual stag films regularly played at JC events. Oh, isn't that nice?
Right.
Gacy plied Voorhees with alcohol, allowed him to watch a stag movie, then persuaded him to engage in mutual oral sex, adding, "You have to have sex with a man before you start having sex with women." Over the following months, Gacy abused several other youths, including one whom he encouraged to have sex with his own wife, God, before blackmailing him into performing oral sex on him. Gacy also tricked several teenagers into believing he was commissioned to conduct homosexual experiments for scientific research and paid them up to $50 each.
Hello, my name is homosexual.
If you like to get like blowjobs and like give them and stuff, like, I just don't understand the whole, like, I mean, I get why pedophiles and like why they like younger boys, but it's like, if you want that stuff, like, there's a lot of like openly gay older men that would willingly do that stuff for you. Like, you don't have to make these kids watch stag movies and then.
I know, it's so gross.
Weird. And it's not even.
I was on the board of directors for the Hagerstown, Maryland JCs, and it was the polar opposite. I like almost died of boredom. I mean,
I hope so, Benny.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it was business only 100% of the time.
Hope there were no stag movies going on.
No, none of that.
Was there fried chicken?
No fried chicken. Nope.
No fried chicken. Okay, you're safe.
There was the worst thing there was some beer, but that was it.
In March 1968, Voorhees told his father that Gacy had sexually assaulted him. Senior immediately informed the police, who arrested Gacy and charged him with performing oral sodomy on Voorhees, and that he attempted to assault 16-year-old Edward Lynch. Gacy vehemently denied the charges and demanded to take a polygraph test. The results of these tests were indicative of deception.
Do you think?
Gacy publicly denied any wrongdoing and insisted the charges were politically motivated. Voorhees Sr. had opposed Gacy's nomination for appointment as president of the Iowa JCs. Several fellow JCs found Gacy's story credible and rallied to his support. However, on May 10th, 1968, Gacy was indicted on the sodomy charge. On August 30th, Gacy promised one of his employees, 18-year-old Russell Schroeder, $300 if he physically assaulted Voorhees in an effort to discourage the boy from testifying in court. Schroeder lured Voorhees to an isolated park, sprayed mace in his eyes, then beat him. Voorhees escaped and reported Schroeder's actions to the police. Schroeder was arrested the next day. Initially denying involvement, he soon confessed to assaulting Voorhees, indicating he had done so at Gacy's request. Police arrested Gacy and charged him with hiring Schroeder to assault and intimidate Voorhees.
Well, maybe he's not so smart.
On September 12th, Gacy was ordered to undergo a psychiatric evaluation. Good. At the psychiatric hospital of the University of Iowa. 2 doctors concluded he had an antisocial personality disorder, the clinical term for sociopathy and or psychopathy, was unlikely to benefit from treatment, and that his behavior pattern was likely to bring him into repeated conflict with society. The doctors concluded Gacy was mentally competent to stand trial. On November 7th, 1968, he pleaded guilty to 1 count of sodomy in retaliation to Voorhees, but not guilty to the charges related to the other youths. He claimed Voorhees had offered himself to him and that he had acted out of curiosity. His story was not believed. Gacy was convicted of sodomy on December 3rd and sentenced to 10 years imprisonment to be served at the Anamosa State Penitentiary. That same day, Gacy's wife petitioned for divorce, requesting she be awarded the couple's home and property, sole custody of their 2 children, and alimony. The court ruled in her favor, and the divorce was finalized on September 18th, 1969. Gacy never saw his first wife or children again.
So he went from selling chicken to choking it.
Yeah.
Clearly. I mean, how sad though, right? I mean, the guy literally had it all. The American dream. Got, $150,000 a year job, got a wife, 2 kids, a great job, unlimited potential in his career, and he blew it all, literally.
I know.
I mean, I'd like to ask everybody in the chat room this, like, if the guy is going around sodomizing everybody, isn't he going to be happy in prison? Like, wouldn't that be like his happy place?
I mean, yeah, probably.
Well, they weren't young enough, probably.
I don't know. Next time I get serious with a girl, I'm getting a bucket of Popeye's fried chicken and bring it home and tell her I'm Popeye the Sailor Man and I had me spinach today and it's your lucky night. That's what I'm going to do.
I think you need to be evaluated by the University of Iowa so you can figure out what's wrong with you.
Yeah, they kind of got it right. They got it right with Gacy. They just, they did get it right.
Yeah,
they did. During his incarceration, Gacy rapidly acquired a reputation as a model prisoner. Within months of his arrival, he had risen to the position of head cook.
He rose again.
He also joined the inmate JC chapter and increased its membership from 50 to 650 men in less than 18 months. Gacy secured an increase in the inmates' daily pay in the prison mess hall and supervised several projects to improve conditions for inmates, including the installation of a miniature golf course. Good move. He was presented with a Distinguished Service Award for his efforts within the inmate JC chapter in February 1970.
I mean, the guy was a mover and shaker. He really was. I mean, he got things done. He was very charismatic. He was very, he was motivated just, towards the wrong things.
Yeah. Something about the JCs. This guy, I don't know. Anything to do with the JCs, he could get it done, it seemed like.
Right.
There's something wrong with his frontal lobe.
He kept rising,
In June 1969, Gacy was denied parole. To prepare for a second scheduled parole hearing in May 1970, he completed 16 high school courses, obtaining his diploma in November 1969. On Christmas Day 1969, his father died from cirrhosis. When informed of his father's death, Gacy collapsed to the floor sobbing. His request for supervised compassionate leave to attend the funeral was denied. He was granted parole within 12 months, probation on June 18th, 1970, having served 18 months, that's it, of his 10-year sentence. Conditions of his probation included a nightly curfew and that he relocate to Chicago to live with his mother. On his release, Gacy told friend and fellow JC, Clarence Lane, who picked him up from the prison and had remained steadfast in his belief of Gacy's innocence, that he would never go back to jail and that he intended to reestablish himself in Waterloo. However, within 24 hours, Gacy had relocated to Chicago. He arrived there by bus on June 19th and shortly thereafter obtained a job as a short order cook.
So here, to me, this is the first fail. Why are you letting this guy out? Given what he did on an underage kid, why? I mean,
I know.
Can you imagine if he was in prison for the whole 10 years? None of these things happen.
No. I don't get how you get a 10-year sentence and you're out in 18 months.
I think that they did it because of his behavior. He was a model inmate, pretty much.
Well, he worked them. He worked them real good.
Right.
He worked. Yeah, he worked them so he could. He was a worker. He worked them so he could get out, so he could do everything he wanted to do. But man, oh man,
he was a master manipulator.
Major fail.
Just like his father.
Mm-hmm.
Just like his father, he learned from the best. On February 12th, 1971, he was charged with sexually assaulting a teenage boy who claimed that he lured him into his car at Chicago's Greyhound bus terminal and driven him to his home where he had attempted to force the boy into sex. The court dismissed this complaint when the boy failed to appear. On June 22nd, Gacy was arrested and charged with aggravated sexual battery and reckless conduct in response to a complaint filed by a youth who claimed that Gacy had flashed a sheriff's badge, lured him into his car, and forced him to perform oral sex. These charges were dropped, oh my God, after the complainant attempted to blackmail Gacy. The Iowa Board of Parole did not learn of these incidents. Gacy's parole ended on October 18th, 1971. And a month later, the records of Gacy's criminal convictions in Iowa were sealed.
So
imagine that.
Fail number 2, right? I mean, if the Iowa Board of Parole had learned of this, and why didn't they? Why aren't they monitoring this guy? Because they immediately put him back in jail, and instead of serving the remaining 8.5 years, I'm sure he's going to get another 10 on top of that for violating his parole, and then none of this happens.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
God.
You all dropped the ball on this one.
Yeah, big time. What's new, though?
Right.
With financial...
I mean, how many times have we talked about this, that the justice system, huge fail, and then these people, they wind up killing people because of it.
Yeah, exactly. With financial assistance from his mother, Gacy bought a ranch-style house at 8213 West Somerdale Avenue in an unincorporated Norwood Park Township, Illinois, part of metropolitan Chicago. He lived there until his arrest in December 1978, and according to Gacy, committed all of his murders there. He was active in his local community and helpful towards his neighbors. He willingly loaned his construction tools and plowed snow from neighborhood walks free of charge. From 1974 to 1978, he hosted themed annual summer parties. These events were attended by up to 400 people, including politicians and business associates.
Why do these people want to hang out with this guy? Like, he's like, what makes him like so like what
This
is so
guy
great
was-
about him? He's not a celebrity.
This guy was sick. He was sick / intelligent. I don't know. It's just he was sick, but he was
you're right.
intelligent.
You're absolutely right.
He might have had the secret recipe for the chicken, though, too.
Yeah,
Secret sauce.
yeah.
He might have been attracting them all there like that. Like, hey, this guy makes same as KFC, guys.
Now
You gotta go to his
the house,
barbecue.
the house. All these politicians are going over in these parties. Is that the house where he's burying everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same one. Yep.
Wow.
In August 1971, shortly after Gacy and his mother moved into the house, he became engaged to Carol Hoff, whom he had briefly dated in high school. Hoff and her 2 young daughters from a previous marriage moved into the house soon after. They were married on July 1st, 1972. Gacy's mother moved out of the house shortly before the wedding. By 1975, Gacy had told his wife that he was bisexual. After the couple had sex on Mother's Day that year, he informed her this would be the last time they would do so. He began spending most
He had sex
evenings
with his
away.
mother. Wait, who?
No, he didn't have sex with his mother. He had sex with his
On
wife on
Mother's
Mother's
Day.
Day. Take that hat off
Oh.
your head. It's crushing your skull and the circulation to your brain.
But he never saw his first wife or the kids ever again, right?
No, this is his second wife, Carol.
Right. All right, but I'm just saying
And
he
he
never saw
told
the
her-
first one.
And he told her, this is it on Mother's Day.
Yeah, he
This
didn't have
is the
sex with his
last
mom.
time we're having sex.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he did his mother on Mother's Day. I was gonna like, well, he's really a sicko.
Well, we don't know. Maybe who knows?
Could be. He began spending most evenings away from home, only to return in the early morning with the excuse he had been working late or conducting business meetings. Carol observed Gacy bringing teenage boys into his garage in the early hours and also found gay pornography and men's wallets and identification inside the house. When she confronted Gacy about these items, he informed her angrily that it was none of her business. I mean, after all, they're not having sex anymore. She has no right to, right? That's probably how his
Right,
mind
yeah.
was thinking. That's my guess, at least. In October 1975, after a heated argument, Carol asked Gacy for a divorce. You think? He
Yeah.
agreed, although
Took
by
you long enough.
mutual consent, she continued to live at his house until February 1976. On March 2nd, the Gacy's divorce, decreed on the false grounds of Gacy's infidelity with women, was finalized. In 1971, Gacy established a part-time construction business, PDM Contractors, for painting, decorating, and maintenance. With the approval of his probation officer, Gacy worked evenings on his construction contracts while working as a cook during the day. Initially, he undertook minor repair work, but later expanded to include projects such as interior design, remodeling, and landscaping. In mid-1973, he quit his job as a cook so he could commit fully to his construction business. By 1975, PDM was expanding rapidly, and Gacy was working up to 16 hours per day. In March 1977, he became a supervisor for PE Systems, a firm specializing in the remodeling of drugstores. Between PE Systems and PDM, Gacy worked up to 4 projects simultaneously and frequently traveled to other states. By 1978, PDM's annual revenue was over $200,000.
You guys, I'm losing it right now. I cannot stop laughing about my dad thinking it's. I had to shut my camera and my microphone
I was
off.
wondering why that happened.
I couldn't stop laughing. I don't
What's the matter with you? You all right? Taking some funny
You're
gas?
like his mom. What is wrong with you?
Hey,
Oh my God. All right. I need to think of something else because
the fuck, he's a fucked up clown. Fucked up clowns have sex with their mother on Mother's Day, you know?
Okay.
Through his membership in local moose club, Gacy became aware of a Jolly Joker clown club. I can't take it.
Clown club.
Members
The Jolly-
regularly performed at
Jolly Joker.
The Jolly Joker.
fundraising events and parades in addition to voluntarily entertaining hospitalized children. In late 1975, Gacy joined the Clown Club and created his own characters, Pogo the Clown and Patches the Clown, devising his own makeup and costumes, which we saw he's not very good at the makeup.
No, yeah, he definitely failed design school.
Yeah. And to think he was doing interior design, painting like that, although it's not that bad. Maybe it's just
No.
the face that he painted it on.
Or maybe it's that,
And-
that bottom of the hat. Like, what is that? That's like so weird.
It looks like the
Some
bottom
drapes.
of like curtains or something like that.
Yeah, from 1968.
Yeah, like retro curtains.
Yeah. But he described Pogo as a happy clown, whereas Patches was a more serious character, just so you know.
But he had been a clown
Gacy
for years,
felt-
just, not on the books.
Gacy seldom earned money for his performances and later said that acting as a clown allowed him to regress into childhood. He performed as both Pogo and Patches at numerous local parties, political functions, charitable events, and children's hospitals. Gacy's voluntary public service as a clown throughout the years of his murders led to him being known as the Killer Clown. In May 1975, Gacy hired 15-year-old Anthony Antonucci. 2 months later, he went to Antonucci's home, knowing the youth had an injured foot. The two drank a bottle of wine, then watched heterosexual stag films before Gacy wrestled Antonucci to the floor and cuffed his hands behind his back. One cuff was loose, and Antonucci freed his arm while Gacy was out of the room. When Gacy returned, Antonucci, a high school wrestler, grappled with him, obtained the key, and cuffed Gacy's hands behind his back.
Nice.
Oh.
Gacy threatened
He
Antonucci,
shot on him.
then calmed down and promised to leave if he was freed. Antonucci agreed and Gacy left. Antonucci continued working for PDM for 9 months after this incident. And
Why?
Gacy made no further attempts to assault.
Why? Work at Photomat. What the hell? Like,
Well,
My
because
God.
he was paying the teenagers who worked for him more than what like the other places were paying them. So like there was like 1 or 2 kids that had left previous jobs where they were getting paid. It was like $2.50 and he offered them like $5. So they left their other jobs to go work for him.
Yeah. And they got to watch stag films.
Yeah.
So
So
Yeah.
that's probably why he stayed, because of the money.
yeah, double the pay, right?
Yeah.
There were several other incidents between Gacy and his underage male employees. Gacy murdered at least 33 young men and boys, 26 of whom he buried in the crawl space of his house. His victims included people he knew and random individuals lured from Chicago's Greyhound bus station, Bughouse Square, or off the streets with the promise of a job with PDM, an offer of drink and or drugs, or money for sex. Some victims were grabbed by force. Others were conned into believing Gacy, who carried a sheriff's badge and had red spotlights on his black Oldsmobile, was a policeman. Gacy usually lured a lone victim to his house, although on more than one occasion, Gacy had what he called doubles, 2 killed in the same evening. Inside Gacy's home, his usual modus operandi was to ply a youth with drink, drugs, or generally gain his trust. He would then produce a pair of handcuffs to show a magic trick, sometimes as part of a clowning routine. He typically cuffed his own hands behind his back, then surreptitiously released himself with a hidden key. He then offered to show his intended victim the trick. With his victim restrained, Gacy proceeded with rape and torture. He frequently began by sitting on or straddling his victim's chest before forcing the victim to give him a blowjob.
This guy in
Yes,
blowjobs. What
surprise.
is happening?
This is sickening. Gacy then inflicted acts of torture, including burning with cigars, making his captive imitate a horse as he sat on their back and pulled on makeshift reins around their necks.
What?
And violation with foreign objects such as dildos and prescription bottles after he had sodomized his captive. Gacy frequently manacled his captive's ankles to a 2x4 with, this guy is sick. I don't think I realized how sick he was. Ankles to
Oh
a
yeah,
2x4.
he did it all. He was a 5-tool player. I mean,
To a 2x4 with handcuffs attached at each end, an act inspired by the Houston mass murders. He also taunted many victims throughout their abuse and was known to have partly drowned several in the bathtub before repeatedly reviving them. That is so sick.
That is sick.
God. Gacy typically murdered his victims by placing a rope tourniquet around their neck and progressively tightening it with a hammer handle. He referred to this as the rope trick, frequently informing his victim, this is the last trick. Occasionally, the victim convulsed for an hour or two before dying. God.
What a sick fucker.
Though several victims died by asphyxiation from cloth gags stuffed deep in their throats. My God. Except for his two final victims, all were murdered between 3 and 6 a.m. Something about that number 3 with this guy, I'm telling you. Gacy usually stored the victims' corpses underneath his bed for up to 24 hours before burying them in the crawl space, where he periodically poured quicklime to hasten decomposition. Some were taken to his garage and embalmed prior to burial. See, he did learn something.
Yeah.
yeah, maybe a little bit. Yeah, wow.
On the afternoon of December 11th, 1978, hold on, I feel like, oh, yep.
Bless
Bless
you.
you.
On the afternoon of December 11th, 1978, Gacy visited the Nissan pharmacy in Des Plaines to discuss a potential remodeling deal with the store owner, Phil Torf. While he was within earshot of 15-year-old part-time employee Robert Peast, I think that's how you say it.
Yeah, I think it is.
Gacy mentioned his firm often hired teenage boys at a starting wage of $5 per hour, almost double the pay Peast earned at the pharmacy. So he was one of the kids, I think, that left his job. Shortly after Gacy left, Peast's mother arrived at the store to drive her son home so the family could celebrate her birthday together. Peast asked his mother to wait, adding that some contractor wants to talk to me about a job. He left the store at 9 p.m., promising to return shortly. Peast was murdered shortly after 10 p.m. at Gacy's home. Gacy later stated that at his house, he gave Peast a soft drink before asking whether there was anything he wouldn't do for the right price, to which Peast replied he did not mind working hard. In response, Gacy stated good money could be earned by hustling. Although Peast was dismissive, Gacy then duped Peast into donning handcuffs. Gacy's subsequent statements regarding the events varied, although one of his initial statements, he claimed Peast failed to resist as he removed the boy's trousers. He also stated that as he placed the rope around Peast's neck, the boy was crying scared. Gacy admitted to having received a phone call from a business acquaintance as Peace lay dying.
Jeez.
When Peace failed to return, his family filed a missing person report with the Des Plaines police. Torf named Gacy as the contractor Peace had most likely left the store to talk to. Lieutenant Joseph Kozenczak, whose son attended Maine West High School like Peace, chose to investigate Gacy further. A check of Gacy's criminal background revealed that he had an outstanding battery charge in Chicago and had been imprisoned in Iowa for the sodomy of a 15-year-old boy. Kozenczak and 2 Des Plaines police officers visited Gacy at his home the following evening. Gacy indicated he had asked one of the youths working at the pharmacy, whom he believed to be Peace, whether there were any remodeling materials behind the store. He was adamant, however, that he had not offered Peace a job and had only returned to the pharmacy shortly after 8 p.m., as he had left his appointment book. Gacy promised to come to the station later that evening to make a statement, indicating he was unable to do so at the moment as his uncle had just died. When questioned as to how soon he could come to the police station, he responded, "You guys are very rude. Don't you have any respect for the dead?"
Well, obviously he doesn't.
That's rich coming from him.
Right, coming from him, that's kind of ironic.
He likes to cuddle.
At 3:20 a.m., Gacy arrived at the police station covered in mud, claiming he had been involved in a car accident. On returning to the police station later that day, Gacy denied any involvement in Peace's disappearance and repeated that he had not offered him a job. Gacy reiterated that he had returned to the pharmacy in response to a phone call from Torf informing him he had left his appointment book at the store. Detectives had already spoken with Torf, who denied calling Gacy. At the request of detectives, Gacy prepared a written statement detailing his movements on December 11th. Suspecting Gacy might be holding Peace at his home, Des Plaines police obtained a search warrant on December 13th. This search revealed several suspicious items, including several police badges, a starting pistol, a syringe and hypodermic needle, handcuffs, books about homosexuality and pederasty, pornographic and stag films, capsules of amyl nitrite, a dildo, a 2x4 with 2 holes drilled into each end, bottles of Valium and atropine, several driver's license, a blue hooded parka, and underwear too small to fit Gacy because he was a fat piece of shit. They also found a class ring engraved with the initials JAS and a Nissan Pharmacy photo receipt in a trash can, alongside a 36-inch section of nylon rope.
Yep.
The Des Plaines police confiscated Gacy's Oldsmobile and other PDM work vehicles. Surveillance teams consisting of other detectives monitored Gacy as the investigation continued. The following day, investigators received a phone call from Michael Rossi, who informed the investigators of Gregory Godzick's disappearance and the fact that another PDM employee, Charles Hatula, had been found drowned in an Illinois river earlier that year. So Michael Rossi was living, I believe, living with Gacy at one point, and was like openly and like willingly like having a sexual relationship with him. Yeah.
And look, Tiffany, most of these kids were runaways, right? Because I think he picked up a lot of them at the Greyhound bus station, didn't he?
No, most of them actually. Well, I don't think so, because most of them actually just were working for him. I don't know where he got them. I think he picked them.
I think that was his. It was like the Green River Killer guy. You know, he killed hookers because he thought, well, nobody's really going to be looking for him. Same thing, maybe with these runaway kids. They've been running. You know, they come from broken homes. They're not. It's not like the parents are going to put out an APB. 30 minutes after they're supposed to be home.
Yeah. On December 15th, Des Plaines investigators obtained further details of Gacy's battery charge, learning Jeffrey Rignall had reported that Gacy had lured him into his car, then chloroformed, raped, and tortured him before dumping him in Lincoln Park. In an interview with Gacy's former wife the same day, they learned of the disappearance of John Bukovich. The same day, the class ring was traced to a John Allensick. An interview with Sick's mother revealed that several items from her son's apartment were also missing, including a Motorola television. By December 18th, Gacy was beginning to display signs of strain from the constant surveillance. He was unshaven, looked tired and anxious, and was drinking heavily. That afternoon, he drove to his lawyer's office to prepare a $750,000 civil suit against the Des Plaines police, demanding that they seize their surveillance. The same day, the Nissan Pharmacy photo receipt found in Gacy's kitchen was traced to 17-year-old Kimberly Byers, a colleague of Peace at Nissan Pharmacy. Byers stated that he had borrowed Peace Parker earlier in the evening and had placed the receipt in the pocket just before she returned the coat to Peace as he left the store. On December 19th, investigators began compiling evidence for a second search warrant for Gacy's house. The same day, Gacy's lawyers filed the civil suit against the Des Plaines police. The hearing for the suit was scheduled for December 22nd. That afternoon, Gacy invited the surveillance detectives inside his house again. As Robinson distracted Gacy with conversation, Schultz walked into Gacy's bedroom in an unsuccessful attempt to write down the serial number of the Motorola television they suspected belonged to Sisk. While flushing Gacy's toilet, the officer noticed a rancid smell he suspected could be that of rotting corpses emanating from a heating duct. Officers who had searched Gacy's house previously had failed to notice this, as the house had been cold. Investigators interviewed both Cram and Rossi on December 20th. When questioned as to where he believed Gacy had concealed Peace's body, Rossi replied, Gacy may have placed the body in the crawl space. Rossi agreed to submit to a polygraph test. He denied any involvement in Peace's disappearance or any knowledge of his whereabouts. He soon refused to continue the questioning, and Rossi's erratic and inconsistent responses, while attached to the polygraph machine, rendered Kosenczak unable to render a definite opinion as to his truthfulness. Rossi did, however, further discuss the trench digging he did in the crawl space and remarked on Gacy's insistence that he not deviate from where he was instructed to dig. Cram informed investigators of Gacy's attempts to rape him in 1976. He said that after he and Gacy had returned to his home after the December 13th search, Gacy had turned pale after seeing a clod of mud on his carpet and had immediately entered the crawl space to look for evidence of digging. When asked whether he had been to the crawl space, Cram replied he had once been asked by Gacy to spread lime down there and had also dug trenches, which Gacy had explained were for drainage pipes. Cram stated these trenches were 2 feet wide, 6 feet long, and 2 feet deep, the size of graves.
Do you think that Rossi knew what was going on and just because of his relationship did not go to the police?
I don't know. So Rossi and Cram were actually, there's like a theory, I guess a conspiracy theory that that Gacy didn't kill everybody and he didn't do it himself, that they potentially had killed people and also put them down there, that it was possibly all three of them murdering people separately and just using that as a dump site.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't trust anybody named Rocky. That sounds suspicious to me.
Rossi, Dad, not Rocky.
Oh.
Oh my God. On the evening of December 20th, Gacy drove to his lawyer's office in Park Ridge to attend a scheduled meeting to discuss the progress of his civil suit. Gacy appeared anxious and disheveled and immediately asked for an alcoholic drink. Sam Amarante fetched a bottle of Seagram's whiskey, and Gacy immediately drank 2 cupfuls. Amarante, by this stage dubious of Gacy's claims of innocence, then asked what he had to discuss with them, placing a copy of the Daily Herald on his desk and stating, "You said you had something new to tell me, something important." Gacy picked up the newspaper, pointed to the front page article covering the disappearance of Peace, and said, "This boy is dead. He's in a river." Gacy then proceeded to give a rambling confession that ran into the early hours of the following morning. He began by stating he had been the judge, jury, and executioner of many, many people, and that he now wanted to be the same for himself. He stated he had murdered at least 30 victims, most of whom he had buried in his crawl space, and had disposed of 5 other bodies in the Des Plaines River. Gacy dismissed his victims as male prostitutes, hustlers, and liars, adding he sometimes awoke to find dead, strangled kids with their hands cuffed behind their back. He had buried their bodies in his crawl space as he believed they were his property. As Gacy drove to various locations that morning, police outlined the formal draft of their second search warrant, specifically to search for Peace's body in the crawl space. On hearing from the surveillance detectives that, in light of this erratic behavior, Gacy might be about to commit suicide, police decided to arrest him on a charge of possession and distribution of cannabis, in order to hold him in custody as the formal request for a second search warrant was presented. At 4:30 p.m. on December 21st, the eve of the hearing of Gacy's civil suit, a second search warrant was granted. After police informed Gacy of their intentions to search his crawl space for the body of Peace, Gacy denied the teenager was buried there, but confessed to having killed in self-defense a young man whose body was buried under his garage. Armed with the signed search warrant, police and technicians drove to Gacy's home. They found Gacy had unplugged his sump pump, flooding the crawl space with water. They replaced the plug and waited for the water to drain. Evidence technician Daniel Genti then entered the 28 by 38 foot crawl space, crawled to the southwest area, and began digging. Within minutes, he uncovered putrefied flesh and a human arm bone. Genti shouted to the investigators that they could charge Gacy with murder, adding, "I think this place is full of kids." A police photographer uncovered a patella in the northeast corner. The two then began digging in the southeast corner, uncovering 2 lower leg bones. The victims were too decomposed to be pieced. As the body in the northeast corner was unearthed, a crime scene technician discovered the skull of a second victim alongside this body. Later, excavations of the feet of the second victim revealed a further skull beneath the body. Because of this, technicians returned to the trench where the first body was unearthed, discovering the ribcage of a fourth victim, confirming the scale of the murders. After being informed that the police had found human remains in his crawl space and that he would now face murder charges, Gacy told officers he wanted to clear the air. In the early morning hours of December 22nd, and in the presence of his lawyers, Gacy provided a formal statement in which he confessed to murdering approximately 30 young males, all of whom he claimed had entered his house willingly. Some victims were referred to by name, but Gacy claimed not to know or remember most of the names. He claimed all were teenage male runaways or male prostitutes, the majority of whom he had buried in his crawl space. Gacy claimed to have dug only 5 of the graves in this location and had his employees dig the remaining trenches so that he would have graves available. When shown a driver's license issued to Robert Haston, which had been found on his property, Gacy claimed not to know this individual, but admitted that this license had been in his possession of one of his victims. He also confessed to having planned to further conceal the bodies beneath his property by covering the entire crawl space with concrete in January 1979.
Ooh, scary.
When questioned specifically about Peace, Gacy confessed to luring him to the house and strangling him on December 11th. He also admitted to having slept alongside Peace's body that evening before disposing of the corpse in the Des Plaines River in the early hours of December 13th. On his way to the police station, he had been in a minor traffic accident after disposing of Peace. His vehicle had slid off an ice-covered road and had to be towed free. Accompanied by police, his lawyers, and his older sister Gacy had driven to the I-55 bridge on December 23rd to pinpoint the precise spot where he confessed to having thrown the body of Robert Peace and 4 other victims into the river. Gacy was then taken to his house and instructed to mark his garage floor with orange spray paint to show where he had buried the individual he had supposedly killed in self-defense, whom he named as John Bukovich. To assist officers in their search, Gacy drew a rough diagram of his basement to indicate where their bodies were buried. 26 bodies were unearthed from Gacy's crawl space. Over the next week, 3 others were also unearthed elsewhere on his property. As the flooring and walls of the property were dismantled, additional evidence, including identification cards and further deviant sex books, were discovered. Gacy brought to trial on February 6, 1980, charged with 33 murders. He was tried in Cook County, Illinois, before Judge Louis Garippo. The jury was selected from Rockford because of extensive press coverage in Cook County. At the request of his defense counsel, Gacy spent over 300 hours with doctors at the Menard Correctional Center in Chester in the year before his trial. He underwent a variety of psychological tests to determine whether he was mentally competent to stand trial. Gacy attempted to convince the doctors that he had multiple personality disorder. He claimed to have 4 personalities: the hardworking, civic-minded contractor, the clown, the active politician, and a policeman called Jack Hanley, whom he referred to as Bad Jack. When Gacy had confessed to police, he claimed to be relaying the crimes of Jack, who detested homosexuality and viewed male prostitutes as weak, stupid, and degraded scum. His lawyers opted to have Gacy plead not guilty by reason of insanity. The prosecutors argued that Gacy was sane and in full control of his actions. They produced several witnesses to testify to his premeditation and the efforts he took to escape detection. Those doctors refuted the defense doctors' claims of multiple personalities and insanity. Cram and Rossi testified that Gacy had made them dig drainage trenches and spread bags of lime in his crawl space. Both said Gacy looked periodically into their crawl space to ensure they and other employees they supervised did not deviate from the precise locations he had marked. On February 18th, Robert Stein testified that all the bodies recovered from Gacy's property were markedly decomposed and putrefied skeletalized remains, and that all the autopsies he performed, 13 victims had died of asphyxiation, six of ligature strangulation, one of multiple stab wounds to the chest, and 10 in undetermined ways. When Gacy's defense team suggested that all 33 deaths were caused by accidental erotic asphyxia, Stein called this highly improbable. During the 5th week of the trial, Gacy wrote a personal letter to Judge Garappo requesting a mistrial for reasons including that he did not approve of his lawyer's insanity plea, that his lawyers had not allowed him to take the witness's stand, that his defense had not called enough medical witnesses, and that the police were lying with regard to verbal statements he had allegedly made to detectives after his arrest, and that in any event, the statements were self-serving for use by the prosecution. Judge Garappo informed Gacy that both counsels had not been denied the opportunity or funds to summon expert witnesses to testify, and that under the law, he had the choice whether he wished to testify and was free to indicate as much to the judge. On March 11th, final arguments by both prosecution and defense attorneys began. Prosecuting attorney Terry Sullivan outlined Gacy's history of abusing youths, the testimony of his efforts to avoid detection, and describing his surviving victims, Voorhees and Donnelly, as living dead. Referring to Gacy as the worst of all murderers, Sullivan stated, John Gacy has accounted for more human devastation than many earthly catastrophes. I tremble when thinking about just how close he came to getting away with it all. After the state's 4-hour closing, counsel Sam Amarante spoke for the defense. Amarante accused Sullivan of scarcely referring to the evidence in his own closing argument and of arousing hatred against his client. He attempted to portray Gacy as driven by compulsions he was unable to control, contending the state had not met their burden of proving Gacy sane beyond a reasonable doubt. Amarante then urged the jury to put aside any prejudice they held against his client and asked they deliver a verdict of not guilty by reason of insanity, adding that Gacy was a danger to both himself and to others, and that studying his psychology and behavior would be of benefit to science. On the morning of March 12th, William Kunkel continued to argue for the prosecution. William referred to the defense's contention of insanity as a sham, arguing that the facts of the case demonstrated Gacy's ability to think logically and control his actions. Kunkel also referred to the testimony of one of the doctors who had examined Gacy in 1968 and had concluded he was an antisocial personality, saying that he had the recommendations of this doctor been heeded, Gacy would not have been freed. At the close of his argument, Kunkel removed photos of Gacy's 22 identified victims from a display board and asked the jury not to show sympathy, but to show justice. The jury deliberated for 1 hour and 50 minutes. Gacy was found guilty of 33 charges of murder. He was also found guilty of sexual assault and taking indecent liberties with a child, both in reference to Robert Peast. At the time, his conviction for 33 murders was the most for which any person in U.S. history had been convicted.
That took him 1 hour and 49 minutes too long, in my opinion, but okay.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to give any secrets out to the girls that are watching out there, but when I go to bed at night, I shut my TV off, I have the fan on, I pull my quilt up, and I go to sleep. How the fuck do you do that with 26 bodies in your crawl space? Like, how do you sleep like that? Like, how do you fucking sleep with 26 bodies downstairs?
Are you talking about like the smell of it or just the guilt of it or both?
Just all of it, the bodies, the
creepiness
everything
of
that's
it.
down there. It's like, how do you do that?
Probably because he used to sleep in a mortuary. So, right?
Yeah,
You got remains down in your crawl space, and you're sleeping upstairs. That's
Yeah, but he's cuddling with a dead body in a casket. So
Yeah.
True.
What a fucked up guy.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I believe the judge's ruling that he could stand trial. I do agree with that because I
Yeah.
mean, shit, the guy was able to run a very successful business and employ
Yep.
people and make money and all of that. I mean, even delegated his authority for these kids to dig graves. I mean, he knew exactly what he was doing.
He did.
He did. I agree. I don't think he was insane at all. Well, he was insane, but not like to the point where he didn't understand what was going on, I guess.
Right.
What the hell gave birth to it? What gave birth to that guy?
I know.
In the
Pretty
sentencing,
creepy.
yeah. In the sentencing phase of the trial, the jury deliberated for more than 2 hours before sentencing Gacy to death for each murder committed after the Illinois statute on capital punishment came into effect in June 1977. His execution was set for June 2nd, 1980. On the morning of May 9th, 1984, Gacy was transferred to Stateville Correctional Center to be executed. That afternoon, he was allowed a private picnic on the prison grounds with his family. For his last meal, Gacy ordered a bucket of KFC,
Oh,
French
Colonel.
fries, a dozen
Did they
French
make him? Did they have to call him Colonel again or what? Like,
fresh strawberries, and a Diet Coke. That evening, he
Diet
received
Coke.
the last.
Gotta
Yes,
watch those
Diet Coke.
calories, right?
That
Yeah.
evening, he received the last rites from a Catholic priest before being escorted to the Stateville execution chamber. In the hours leading up to Gacy's execution, a crowd estimated at over 1,000 gathered outside the correctional center. A vocal majority were in favor of the execution, although a small number of anti-death penalty protesters were present. Some of those in favor of the execution wore T-shirts harking to Gacy's previous community services as a clown and bearing satirical slogans such as "No tears for the clown." At 12:40 a.m., the procedure to administer the lethal injection began. Although the chemicals used in the execution solidified unexpectedly, clogging the IV tube, the execution team replaced the clogged tube and the execution resumed. The entire procedure took 18 minutes. Anesthesiologists blamed the problem on the prison officials' inexperience at conducting an execution. This error apparently led to Illinois adopting an alternative method of lethal injection. One prosecutor at Gacy's trial, William Kunkel, said he got a much easier death than any of his victims. Apparently, though, I was watching one of the documentaries, and it was saying that he probably, it was probably like more painful for him than it should have been because of what happened. So I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I want to tell you this though, KFC's got coleslaw as the bomb. It really is.
Coleslaw and their potato wedges with gravy are really good too.
I do like the potato wedges. I'm not, a KFC fan, but I do like those.
They're my favorite.
They used to have grilled chicken, which I would go and get, but they stopped doing it. I guess it was too healthy.
Yeah,
I guess it was they'd have to rename it KGC then. But here, I mean, this is crazy. These are all his victims, and Brittany and I were talking before the show. I mean, God only knows how many. I bet there's more than 33.
Yeah.
So there is one in there. His name is Michael Marino. I'm looking at his picture. He's like to the right, the second down, like the last third, like to the right.
Okay.
But I guess his mom, there was some discrepancy in whether or not he was actually a Gacy victim, because they originally said he wasn't, that they didn't find his remains. Then they said that they did find his remains, but based on his the dental records or something along those lines, it didn't match him, but they were still saying that it was him. But his mother refuses to believe that it was him because they had said it wasn't, then they said it was. So he may or may not actually be a victim. Yeah. And there's still 6 unidentified victims too. To this day. They found one victim they finally found out who it was in like 2017. And so, yeah, there's still 6 that they don't know who they are.
So
Wow.
I don't want to say this while we're talking about dead people, but Walt's right. The chicken at KFC is way overpriced now. The bucket of chicken is too much money.
Leave it to the clown to say something ridiculous.
Well, I got chicken on my mind. I love fried chicken.
Right. Well, we're talking about these poor victims over here.
Okay. I'm just commenting on what Walt said.
Okay.
It's beyond sad. But to me, what I wanted to get everybody's opinion on is, I mean, did the justice system fail, and could many of these, if not all of these, have been prevented? What do you guys think?
They definitely failed, for sure. Like, he, first of all, should have served his 10-year sentence to begin with.
Yes.
And then the stuff that occurred after that they just like let go, and that when he moved to Chicago, that Iowa didn't know about his indecencies in Chicago. Like, they're supposed to be keeping an eye on him. That's the whole point of like parole, so they know where he is. Which I thought it was kind of weird that they even, I mean, I guess it happens, but like the fact that they even paroled him to a different state,
I know,
I guess is weird, because then maybe it is a little bit harder to keep an eye on what they're doing. I don't know.
I think, the thing is, our justice system is still failing us today. It's like in America today, everybody that does wrong is right. And everybody that gets out of the bed to go to work and do right is wrong. It's everything's so fucking backwards today in this country.
It just seems like there's a lot more protection for the criminal than there is the victim.
Yeah,
and a lot more sympathy for the criminal.
I think the problem too is like with the law, there's like so many loopholes that like you can like get through, and like I don't know. So I just feel like it ends up not being justice and working in the victim's favor. It works for the person who committed the crime.
But even after after maybe like 5 or 6 kids go missing, isn't there like, I mean, yes, some of these kids, were runaways, but some of them, I believe, did live at home. I mean, aren't the police interviewing the parents? Where did your son work? I work for PDM. Like, after about 3 of those, wouldn't, like the police connect the dots and say, we got to talk to this PDM guy? Why didn't that happen?
Yeah. I think that there were times that Gacy and PDM were brought up in some situations. So I don't know why he was just like let off and nobody really cared, I guess.
Sounds to me like a lot of slips through the cracks. That's what it sounds to me.
Yeah.
Yes, thank God that I have so many normal kids. That's all. Thank you. Thank you, Jesus.
I mean,
yeah.
You're welcome.
No, but he did to a certain extent. He did. He was smart enough to prey on. Although that last victim, Peace, maybe that's where. You always mess up, and he, that kid had an intact family who, immediately reported him missing, and that was Gacy's undoing.
Well, Gacy knew about it too, though, because Peace had told him, like, hey, my mom is waiting for me. So he knew that his mother was literally waiting on the other side, like in the front of the building, for him to come back.
I wonder if you think at some point he wanted to get caught, like maybe he was tired of doing this. I mean,
yeah, I don't know, maybe. But I do also want to say that the person, was his name Donald Voorhees, the one that he sodomized, he did end up committing suicide. Yeah, he did. And then the victim, Gurnall, Robert Gurnall, maybe, is one of them who got away. The one that he chloroformed. He also ended up committing suicide as well.
That's insane. I mean, that there had to be some, cause and effect there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very sad.
Yeah.
So in addition to the 33, I mean, there's 2 more casualties that, maybe not directly, but definitely indirectly.
Right.
Yeah. 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 It really makes you wonder how many there are, though. Like you said, Benny.
Well, there was like a whole thing with the apartment that his mother lived in. Now, I don't know if it was the apartment. I believe it may have been the apartment she lived in when she moved out of the house with him, and not the original apartment that they had lived in together. But there was speculation that there was possibly bodies buried there too, because there were witnesses and neighbors in that neighborhood saying that he was digging trenches along the sidewalks and like doing weird stuff. And they like had radar or whatever that could check underneath the ground, which they did twice, but the only real way to know would have been to dig in that area, and they never did.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep. I'll bet you.
Yeah, I think some of these killers, like that BTK guy, Dennis Rader, the one in Wichita, Kansas, he would write notes, very eloquent notes, and send them to the police to taunt them. And I think didn't the Zodiac killer do the same thing?
I was just watching that last night. Yeah, the Zodiac killer did the
some
same
of these guys, I think that in their minds they believed, like even Ted Bundy. I think Ted Bundy believed he was way smarter than the police, and he was probably right.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't think Gacy was like that. I think Gacy just had these urges, and he just followed them. I don't think he had any motive other than to satisfy his urges. I don't think he wanted to really outsmart anybody.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he wanted.
Well, I gotta tell you, I got an urge right now. I gotta get KFC tomorrow.
Oh God!
Now it's on my mind.
They might get
again.
What's that?
No, I said they might still be open. Why wait? You know?
No, it's too late. You know, I keep this physique in shape. I don't have food after a certain time. That's why I keep my body in the shape it's in there, Benny.
When I go to Grandma Sally's, I always say I'm watching my figure because nobody else watches it.
Yeah.
The same is true for David.
Yeah. And keep an eye on Minnesota. Keep an eye on what's going on in Minnesota.
Yeah. Yep. Crazy world we live in, guys. So we're going to call it a night. And thanks as always to everyone in the live chat, as well as anyone who follows our show. If you haven't already done so, please make sure you subscribe to the Monte and the Pharaoh YouTube channel so you won't miss any episodes. Please do not forget to join yours truly and Dan Sebastiano tomorrow night. Actually, we have a special starting time at 5:45. One-time thing for Dan and Benny in the Ring. Then on Wednesday night at 7, for When It Was Real with the great Nikita Brezhnikov. Do not forget to check out The Bad Girl every Saturday from 1 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Funland Radio. Spinning the oldies as only she can, and you can find yours truly on Want Radio every Sunday afternoon at 3 for Benny the Jet and the Jet Set. I've included links for both in the description. So for the Bad Girl, Brittany Brown, the Genius Tiffany Star, and Dangerous Dave the Carnival Man, this is the one and only player, a.k.a. Benny the Jet, telling everyone to stay safe, and we will see you next crime.
50.
Bye.
50.
You want to say goodnight to Mrs. P there, Brittany?
Yes. Good night, Mrs. P. Good night 2.0 if you're here. Thank you.
And
Good night, Mrs. P. Check the crawl spaces, Mrs. P. Good night.
Oh,
Don't say that to her.
No, don't say that to her.
All right. On that note, we're signing off. Goodbye.